You're in the middle of a war. Bombs are falling, nations are fighting, soldiers are dying. And you, dear viewer, are sitting in an abandoned Italian monastery with a man so badly burnt he looks like toast that stayed in the fire just a little too long. He says he's English. He says nothing else. He clutches an old copy of Herodotus like it's the Holy Grail. Now, normally I'd say mind your business. But in this case, oh no. You definitely want to know who this crispy mystery man is. And trust me, by the time you find out, you'll wish you hadn't asked. This, my friends, is the English Patient. And the more you listen to his story, the more you'll realize nobody walks away from war without scars. Some on the skin, others buried deep in the soul. Our story takes place during the Second World War, mostly in North Africa and Italy, but not in the trenches or on the front lines. Instead, we find ourselves in a monastery that has been converted into a makeshift hospital. The war is still going on, but the main character here, if we can even call him that, is already halfway gone. Meet the English Patient, or at least that's what everyone calls him, because, well, he says he's English. Problem is, he's so badly burned you can't exactly check his passport. His skin is darkened, his hair is gone, his body is a map of pain, and his identity is hidden behind both the scars and his silence. His only possession? A much-loved, heavily annotated copy of Histories by Herodotus. Enter Hana, a young Canadian nurse. She's not here because she was assigned. No, she's here because she chose to stay. See, the hospital is being moved from the monastery to a safer location with better facilities, but Hana refuses to leave. She thinks the English Patient is too fragile to be moved, and maybe, just maybe, she's looking for some personal redemption after losing her father to the war. It's just the two of them, until they get company. First up, Kirpal Singh, a Sikh sapper nicknamed Kip. His job? Locating and defusing unexploded bombs left behind by the retreating Germans, which in my humble opinion makes him both incredibly brave and slightly insane. And then there's Caravaggio, a Canadian thief, war veteran, and friend of Hana's late father. Once upon a time, Caravaggio's sticky fingers were a problem. But during the war, his talents were repurposed for espionage. He paid a heavy price, though. He lost his thumbs during a capture and torture session. And let me tell you, for a thief, losing your thumbs is like a pianist losing their hands. Now, Caravaggio takes one look at the English Patient and goes, this man is hiding something. He's got that gut instinct that only thieves and mothers have. Caravaggio starts dropping hints, poking questions into conversations like toothpicks into snacks. But the English Patient? He's smooth. He dodges, he deflects, he drifts off into his Herodotus. Caravaggio becomes convinced this man isn't English at all. He's Count Ladislaus de Almasi, a Hungarian desert explorer who may have been working with the Germans during the war. Rumor has it, Almasi used his vast knowledge of the desert to help a German spy cross into Egypt. In wartime, that's enough to put you on several most wanted lists. Slowly, in a kind of dreamlike haze, the English Patient begins to tell his story, though not in a straightforward way. His memories come in pieces like puzzle fragments scattered across the floor. He tells of years spent mapping the Sahara Desert, living without allegiance to any country, rejecting borders entirely. I am a man of the desert, he says, someone who belongs nowhere and everywhere at once. And then comes the scandal, the one that turns all their lives upside down. Almasi falls in love with Catherine Clifton, the wife of fellow explorer Geoffrey Clifton. It's one of those doomed, passionate affairs where the air between them is heavy with longing, and the desert heat only makes it worse. You know the type, the kind of love that doesn't just set hearts on fire, but eventually burns everything. Eventually, Geoffrey finds out. And when a man discovers his wife is having an affair with his friend, well, it rarely ends with a polite handshake. Geoffrey hatches what can only be described as a murder-suicide plan. He flies his plane with Catherine on board, straight at Almasi. The crash kills Geoffrey instantly. Catherine survives, but she's badly injured. Almasi tries desperately to save her, carrying her into a cave to keep her safe while he goes for help. But fate is cruel. In his quest for help, Almasi is captured, suspected of being a spy, and imprisoned. By the time he escapes and returns, Catherine is dead. The desert has swallowed her. It's this moment, this loss, that defines him. The burns that cover his body now aren't just from the desert sun or the war. They're from the day he finally retrieved Catherine's body, only to crash himself. While Almacy's tragic romance kind of takes center stage, the others carry their own burdens too. Kip lost his brother to prison because his brother refused to fight for the British Empire, a war India had no real stake in. Kip keeps doing his dangerous work, defusing bombs, but you can just sense the growing bitterness beneath the surface. Caravaggio, well, he's lost more than his thumbs. The war took away his identity just as much as it did his physical abilities. Hana lost her father, and with him, her innocence. Staying behind with the English patient is her way of clinging to purpose in a world that's just falling apart. And yet, in that monastery, for a brief moment, these four damaged souls find something like companionship. The book I've been talking about is The English Patient by Michael Ondaatje, winner of the 1992 Booker Prize and later adapted into an Academy Award-winning film in 1996. But trust me, the book is its own kind of masterpiece. Different in feel from the film, slower, more poetic, and layered with hidden meanings. I'll be honest, this isn't a book you read for plot speed. This is not a thriller where you're flipping pages to see what happens next. Instead, it's a novel that moves like drifting sand. You read it for the experience, the atmosphere, the language. Michael Ondaatje writes with a poetic touch. His sentences have this quiet beauty, like desert winds carving shapes into dunes. The narrative isn't linear. It's more like memory itself, leaping between past and present, between heat and shadow, between love and war. If you're the kind of reader who likes everything laid out neatly, this book might frustrate you. But if you enjoy piecing together a story the way an archaeologist brushes sand off ancient ruins, this will reward you richly and emotionally. Wow. This is a novel about loss. Every single character is grieving something, and the war is the shadow looming over them all. There's no sugarcoating here. War doesn't just take lives. It dismantles identities, it erodes trust, it burns away love until there's only ash. Several themes stood out to me. First, the destruction of war, not just physically, but emotionally and morally. Each character is a casualty in some way. Second, identity and belonging. Almacy rejects nationality, yet his actions are judged entirely through the lens of national loyalty. Who are we without our passports, without our borders? Third, love and betrayal. The romance between Almacy and Catherine is passionate but destructive. In war, love becomes both salvation and curse. Fourth, the fluidity of truth. The English patient's story changes depending on how much morphine he's had, who's asking, and what he chooses to reveal. Can we ever know the truth or only fragments? And finally, the intersection of cultures. Kip's presence as an Indian soldier serving the British highlights the tangled web of colonialism and loyalty. Michael Ondaatje was born in Sri Lanka in 1943, later moving to England, and eventually settling in Canada. He's one of those rare authors who blends poetry and prose seamlessly. You can tell he's a poet at heart even when he's writing novels. His works often deal with memory, history, and the way personal lives intersect with political events. The English Patient is perhaps his most famous work, but he's also written A Neil's Ghost, Divisadero, and Running in the Family. So, should you read The English Patient? If you like your stories neat and tidy, maybe not. But if you want to be immersed in language so beautiful you almost forget you're reading about war, if you don't mind stories told in fragments, if you want to wander the desert with a man who may or may not be who he says he is, then yes, absolutely yes. Just be prepared. This is a novel that lingers. The sand will stay in your shoes long after you've turned the last page. If you enjoyed this review, give it a like, share it with a fellow book lover, and let me know in the comments. Have you read The English Patient? And if so, do you think Almacy was a hero, a traitor, or just a man hopelessly in love? Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're interested in diving deeper into this book, I've left some links down in the description. You can use it to grab yourself a copy and keep the adventure going. And if you're in the mood for more great reads, don't go just yet. Click on one of the videos popping up right now that I think you'll love. And don't forget to give this review a like, leave a comment, or even subscribe if you'd like to see more. Every bit of support helps us grow this little community of book lovers. See you in the next one.